Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to MUFC versus Everybody. I am your host, Sean, and welcome back to yet another, Manchester United fan show. I know we need so many more of those, but one more couldn't hurt. I believe that it's about perspective, differences in opinions and things. So it's great to be able to kind of share my thoughts and my views and my voice. When it comes to all things Manchester United related. Today, obviously, we're doing 3 thoughts on the match from yesterday, which was just that was just a shit show, wasn't it? Excuse my language. It's hard not to develop some late onset Tourette's when you watch United these days. But before we do get started, please go ahead and drop a like on the video. It really means a lot to me. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, please, if you're new. I'd love to get more people involved. Leave a comment, share your thoughts in the live chat. I'll respond to everybody as long as your comments are nice and not, remove worthy. And then go follow me on Twitter at MUFC versus Everybody. Obviously, I was somewhat active during the match yesterday, sharing my thoughts and my criticisms, my complaints. I've been a little active since the match, sharing a few memes with my thoughts as well. Memes are great, right? Memes and GIFs, what a way to share everything you're feeling in a simple video clip or image. Like, that's awesome. The internet, right? And obviously yesterday I did share my initial reaction. Go ahead and watch that if you haven't yet. It's hard not to let the emotions choose the words for you in those moments, but we try. And so it's good to kind of take another day, sleeping on it a little bit and come back and organize my thoughts. So let's dive into my 3 thoughts as United lose 4-0 to Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. So number 1, same shit, different day. In so many more ways than just one, right? It's just, you can almost, before even the kickoff, you can almost just kind of tell what's going to happen. You can already know and predict what's going to happen just before the first ball is kicked. It's just, we've just become so routine and patterned in the complete worst ways imaginable when it comes to the way we play, the team we set up, our tactics, the performance overall. It's just, Ten Hag goes on and on about routines and things, but we're just doing the worst ones. Nothing is changing on the pitch, right? From individual performances, from the players to the tactics, to the formations, to the results. Nothing is changing. And major changes are going to be needed kind of all over the place, on the pitch, behind the scenes, players, manager, even. Like, 10-year plan is everything needs to be ripped up, completely start over again. Like, just the way it's going to have to be. We need to change the profile of player that we target. I know some stuff came out the last few days about, trying to, Ten Hag made some comments like, we need players who fight, who have the right mentality, right? The right attitude. We need to change that. We need to look at guys, like a Conor Gallagher or someone like that, someone who does get around the pitch, who does help, who does put in a shift and leads by example. I know some people might argue that McTominay is that guy. I mean, but McTominay has not been fit, and he's had his share of injuries. And I think that he is at an age now. I mean, I think Gallagher is better than McTominay, and Gallagher has shown he's been captaining Chelsea, and look at what they've been doing. We need to change our transfer policy, or maybe just get a transfer policy that needs to change, because it's the same every single season. Now, hopefully, with the new ownership involved and the new decision makers and the new, individuals we have making those kind of decisions and developing that kind of strategy and that kind of plan and that kind of structure, we'll see something. But it's going to take a while. It's not going to be an overnight thing. But I do think that Sir Jim and his team can make big statements this summer. And I think we are going to need some players who are going to raise a few eyebrows when we make those signings. And as far as same shit, different day. On the pitch, it's not any better, right? It's the same tactics from the manager, same formation, same players that he chooses week in, week out, and unsurprisingly, it's the same outcomes when all that happens, right? I know people like to throw out there, what's the definition of insanity? Well, it's Einstein's definition of insanity, right? His little kind of tongue-in-cheek definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I mean, I get it. The injuries are there, but at the same time, you got to make changes. We can't keep seeing the same stuff every single match. It's not helping. On the pitch, it's the same players who fail to perform, who fail to show up each week, or who just don't really offer anything, or just who aren't good enough. And I get it, with injuries, there's only so much you can do, but at the same time, we've got, Anthony starting, Ahmad on the bench. Just flip that around for a couple matches. Give Ahmad a run in the team and see what happens. It can't be any worse. And we have hard matches coming up, Newcastle, Arsenal, and Brighton. So it's, to an extent, I can see maybe not wanting to try to take the risk, but at the same time, league is done. Like, we will be lucky to make Europe. We'll be lucky to get Conference League. As far as European competition goes, FA Cup is our best hope. So getting back to these players, Eriksen's done. He's 32 now. He doesn't, unless he's dictating play from deep and he gets time on the ball, which we don't get any much of these days. What's the point of Eriksen? He's just a body in midfield. Ten Hag chased Amrabat, doesn't start him. Amrabat didn't do poorly yesterday. I mean, he didn't do as poorly as we've seen him, but at the same time, it wasn't enough. And yeah, you can argue, by that point, the game was pretty much gone. But at the same time, like, he's been here all season. He's barely been used. So that's on Ten Hag. What was the point of that? Wan-Bissaka, I think, is just, he's just not looked, since that FA Cup quarterfinal against Liverpool, Wan-Bissaka has not looked great. He's given away a lot of stupid penalties. Some of them I think were soft, but at the same time, the positions he puts himself in are not great. He's just not looked switched on. He's next to useless once a player gets past him inside the pitch. Players, if he's chasing down someone on the touch line, he's usually fine. But it's when someone burns him and starts moving centrally, especially when they get into our box, Wan-Bissaka he's done. He's useless. He either is going to give away a pen, or he's just going to get left in the dust, because he doesn't have the defensive awareness and that instinct, because he wasn't originally a defender. He was a winger way long time ago. Anthony, do we have to talk about Anthony? I mean, yesterday was a new low for Anthony, in my opinion. He's just, he got a shot off and it was on target for once, in terms of that cut in from the right into the middle of the park. But his passing needs work. He's making these passes, and when it doesn't come off, we saw him having a go at at Højlund or Garnacho, whoever was up there playing, and it was just like, dude, you play the ball behind them. That's not their fault. And then we've got players who we've been counting on who just aren't injured, or who seem to be running out of steam. So like Bruno's been carrying us, and you can say, yeah, he's been carrying us to all these points dropped still, but Bruno has still produced. He can't be the only one in the team who's producing, though. There's only so much one player can do. Maguire stepped up, been doing a great job in defense, in my opinion, amidst our injury crisis. But even that, he picked up that knock a few weeks back, and he's been playing, but it's just one match too many, and that's kind of the theme. It's one match too many for a lot of these players. Diogo Dalot, such a tremendous step up in development over the course of this season, has not been great the last few matches. I don't remember seeing him really at all yesterday. We spoke about that a little bit in my match reaction. Where was Dalot? There was somebody shared a screenshot on X yesterday of a given play where, Palace got the ball. They were in our half, And it kind of, you could see the whole, kind of almost the whole pitch, but Dallow's nowhere even in the picture. Obviously, he's playing right back, but he was nowhere in that frame because he, like I said yesterday, when any given moment, Dallas seemed to be in the opposite position of where we needed him to be. And then the one time I do remember him actually being part of a piece of play or a moment, it was when he again fell asleep for their goal. I think that was the one Tyreek Mitchell got on the end of. Fell asleep on the back post, like we've seen a fullbacks and we've seen Dallo do time and time again. Just miscontrols the ball and it falls to Tyreek Mitchell in the middle of our box, basically. And it's just switching off. Again, I think it's just one match too many for a lot of players, and I think we're running out of steam. We've been running on fumes for weeks, and now those fumes are just starting to sputter out, and we're seeing it with many, many players. And then you have the youngsters. Now, I'm not going to dig them out, but because they've been bright sparks to our season. Kabi Menu, Alejandro Garnacho, Hoyland. Yes, Hoyland is a youngster. They've been bright sparks. They've been energized. They've shown some really good potential and really good promise, and they've lit up the matches in key moments. Menu's goal against Wolves, Garnacho's obviously his Puskas award-worthy goal against Everton. Hoyland had that stellar Champions League record, and then obviously got injured, but he's looked really good since. Even they look like they've almost had enough. Like they're just getting frustrated. They're getting disheartened, dejected. Garnacho is trying a little too hard. I think that with Rashford being missing and our options limited, I mean, you have to play Garnacho, but even he looks like he just has tunnel vision sometimes, and that's what happens when you get tired, when you get exhausted, when fatigue sets in. You start making sloppy mistakes and you lose focus. And again, it's happening every single week. So the performances from the players have been awful in recent weeks. They're leading the points drop left and right. We've got 1 win, 1 loss, and 3 draws in our last 5. But this match against Palace reached a new low for me in terms of poor performance. You could say we've only had 4 losses in 2024, but this is why stats and the eye test need to work together and not like butt heads here, because watching us play versus looking at some of the statistics tells you a completely different story than just the 4 losses. Plus, statistically, we have a lot of draws. We started off strong this season without many draws, but then we've just been picking them up. And it's because we're dropping points from stupid positions. How many of these points have we dropped from winning positions? I think they're many, if I'm trying to think off the top of my head. How many goals have we conceded in extra time? How many goals have we conceded in points have we dropped because of stupid individual errors? So you could say a draw is a draw, but at the same time, it's why that draw happened. It's when that goal was conceded. It's what led to that goal being conceded. Context is key, right? So we had winning positions heading into extra time in so many situations, and just a dumb mistake costs us the points. And those things in and of themselves, isolated in 1 or 2 matches a season, okay, it's going to happen. But when you keep letting that kind of stuff happen over and over again, that piles up. Like I've said before, people worry about the big car repair or having to replace, the furnace or something, but they don't give a second thought to the latte that they get every single day on their way to work. That's going to end up costing you like $150 at the end of the month. That's $1,500 or so each year that you're spending on coffee alone. In that case, it's the little things, right? Even pebbles make big ripples. An accumulation of individual errors that leads to drop points and goals conceded. That is what's going to kill you. Sir Alex said it. Attack wins you matches, defense wins you titles, and we are not looking defensively solid right now. Number 2, just play the kids. Just play the kids. there's nothing really to play for in the league. I know that sounds pessimistic for me to say. A few weeks ago, we had some hope, right? But these last few matches, I mean, that hope is gone. Yesterday really, really, really hurt any of that hope. So play the kids and see which one of them has it. You know, which one of them looks like they could be the next one to kind of start breaking into the first team. What's the harm in it? You know, Casemiro has been checked out for weeks and continues to make stupid mistakes. And despite what we've seen in one match, he in one match, like in terms of those mistakes, he somehow gets worse in the next match every weekend. And yesterday was probably the worst match I've ever seen from Casemiro. Obviously, I don't watch a ton of La Liga. You know, up until he joined United, the most I've seen from Casemiro was, you know, Champions League games. Obviously, I have a buddy who's a big Real Madrid fan, so I would watch some big La Liga games with him, some Clásicos, and obviously we would watch a lot of the Champions League, watch a lot of the Champions League finals. I mean, Casemiro was a force against Man City in the Champions League a few seasons ago. He has been a farce for United this season, and yesterday was, again, probably the worst I've ever seen him play. I said it yesterday. He's done as a United player. He might be done as a professional footballer with what we saw yesterday. He looked like someone's grandfather trying to play in the backyard. Like, he was slow with the feet, slow of thought. The tackles he was trying to attempt, they didn't look like tackles. They looked like he was intentionally just flopping to the ground to try to just not have to work in that run of play anymore. He was almost like sitting down, like a little toddler running to the carpet in class, you know, for story time, just running, and he just sits. And then he looks around and he gets up and he's shaking his head like he's actually disappointed in himself. Like, you're just not trying, man. You don't care. And it's frustrating to watch because it's killing us. It's seriously killing us. He went to ground 3 or 4 times against Palace in weak, clumsy, half-hearted attempts to win the ball, and he didn't win it at all. I mean, he only won 7 out of 17 ground duels yesterday. He was just not up for it, and he hasn't been for weeks. He was constantly caught out of position, far too high up the pitch. He was leaving Evans and Andre Onana vulnerable time and time again, with just being too eager to get involved in like the middle of the park, or again trying those weak, half-hearted slide tackles, and it leaves us exposed. That's positional discipline, that's discernment, that's decision making, that's a lack of professionalism and awareness. And someone of Casemiro's experience and his caliber and his trophy record should know better and should be doing better. And this is why I think that he's just switched off. I saw it in the Coventry game for sure. You know, when he stepped up to take that pen in the shootout, that was kind of the beginning of it, really. You could tell he was just like, he didn't want to be there. I'd said literally out loud, like, he does not want to take this pen. Look at his face. And it's like he doesn't want to be here. But we don't have any options. So play the kids. Collier was on the bench. Play Collier. Who cares at this point? Play Ogonier. Just play him. Who cares? I don't. I and many others have said several times that relying on Antony can very well cost Ten Hag his job, and yet Ten Hag continues to start him. He offers nothing. When we signed him, I was excited because I watched a lot of Ajax, and he was really good at Ajax. When he struggled to start, I was willing to give him time because he was young. It's a brand new league. We give people time. I said, okay, he gets time to adjust after a somewhat bright start. Second season, he's really going to need to step up. And this season, he has not stepped up. He doesn't do anything. He slows things down when he receives the ball, killing our momentum when we do get a chance to counterattack. He can't pass. I would say people for a while, it looked like, okay, he tracks back, he helps out defensively. Yeah, but when he does, all he does is go in for slide tackles, and 9 times out of 10, he misses them. He goes flying off the pitch. It's lazy. And now we've seen him start to get just a little bit more frustrated either with himself or with the situation, because yesterday, again, we saw him kind of have a go at his teammates for for his failed pass, which is just, it's irresponsible, it's selfish, it's immature, it's deflecting the blame. And this is what happens when things start to go to shit. Everyone's pointing the finger and no one takes responsibility. And we've seen that for a while. Anthony yesterday was kind of the face of that. I was actually surprised Ten Hag took Anthony off as early as he did. It was a 60th minute sub, but again, he was so poor. I mean, he's killing. We've talked about many times. Remember when I talked about the O principle? A player's like flaws will multiply, not just add. It's not like, oh, one player, one flaw, one thing. No, they multiply because they impact all the other players on his team, and those players have to then kind of accommodate that. So Anthony is a big culprit in that regard. He only had 27 touches yesterday, 0 successful dribbles, and only completed 13 passes for a player who was on the pitch 60 minutes. It's not good. Mount wasn't too better. I mean, honestly, Mount only had 36 touches on the ball by the time he came off in the 80th minute. And obviously, you could say Mount, he's not quite back to match rhythm. He's match fit because he was getting around. He was putting in some tackles, which I like to see, which is why I think Mount could do a job deeper in a pivot as well. But again, it just wasn't enough. We just weren't moving the ball well enough, and that's what happens. We need to take a long, serious, even difficult look at many of these players that we have in the squad, and perhaps make a few very hard and maybe even surprising decisions when it comes to sales. And we need to send a major message to the rest of the squad, to the rest of the league, any potential transfer targets. Like, you need to perform. We know that Omar Barada has that kind of 2-year, I guess you could call it, trial period for these players. If you're not performing for 2 years, you're gone. It's just the way it is. We saw it at City a lot with players who weren't cutting it. But play the kids. You can't really fault the kid too much, right? Kabi Maidu makes a mistake. We don't come down on him because he's young. The one consistent thing about youngsters is that they are inconsistent. And because he's got, in my opinion, he's earned grace. He's earned some money in the bank by just the way he has been playing this year, especially given his first year ever playing professional football, his age, and the situation that he's been forced to be in, just carrying the weight, a lot of that weight in midfield, a lot of that responsibility is a lot to put on him. I worry that we might burn him out, that this season, the way it's gone, I worry that might impact him a little too much, but he looks like he's got a good head on his shoulders. He looks like he's a strong personality. The same with someone like Kambwala. I think Kambwala's got a good, strong personality as well. So we'll see. Clearly, Wheatley has a good, strong personality. He came on, looked lively, was getting involved. I thought he was going to get a chance to create something, pull one back as consolation, but he didn't quite pick out. He chose to keep taking the ball on that break instead of maybe laying it off to Garnacho, which would have been the better option. But it is what it is. We saw Amas, Ogonier, Jackson, and Collier all on the bench. They've been part of the matchday squad for several weeks. Forson as well. Just play them. Just play them. Who cares at this point? Now, you can't look worse as a manager. We can't look worse as a squad by playing the kids and showing these first team players that they haven't been good enough and they don't deserve to play. Of course, now it almost becomes too late in some regards because our next match is against Arsenal. You don't really want to throw a bunch of kids into a team like Arsenal right now because they're flying and we're not. But really, do we really think the senior players are going to do any better? No, I don't. What about yesterday's match showed you that the senior players deserve to play or that they would get a result? Funny thing is, there's part of me that's like, this Arsenal match is exactly the kind of match we will somehow get a result. And I don't understand it. But I think we could be in for a serious hiding. I wouldn't be surprised to see our goal differential dip into double digits in the next few weeks in terms of negative double digits. So, but play the kids. I think they've earned it. Forson, Ahmad. Ahmad's not a kid. Play him on the right. Give Garnacho a break. Play Forson. Play Wheatley. Play Collier instead of Eriksson. Start Amrabat. Honestly, why not? Who cares? Play Amas instead of Wan-Bissaka on the left-hand side. He can't do much worse, right? We'll probably see Aaron Wan-Bissaka again on the left. Like I said, he would be yesterday again because we've got Arsenal and Saka coming up, and so I think Ten Hag just is going to tell him try to contain him, but he can't. Wan-Bissaka's done out here, man. Brings us to number 3. Ten Hag is gone. Now I know I've been one of his biggest defenders in recent weeks this season. So you can sit there and call me a hypocrite, but again, not being open to changing your perspective and being open to new information and trying to stick with a stance that you've had a while ago when new information comes in, that's just stubborn, denial, naivete, whatever you want to call it. You have to be able to change as things change in life. And again, it's not that I'm changing because I'm fickle or a flip-flop. It's that things aren't changing on the pitch. Ten Hag's not making the changes that I've said that he needs to change. He's not learning from his decisions and his mistakes, which I've said he needs to do. He's sticking with the players. And I know all the people like, I told you. Cool. Whatever. You can predict the future. Go win the lottery if that's the way you feel. Go take a trip to Vegas. I'm willing to give people some time and to show me that they can make changes. Maybe that's just the therapist in me. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason I became a therapist, because maybe naturally I can think that way. I don't know. It doesn't make me better or worse. It's just different. But Ten Hag's not shown it. And again, it's not even about that as far as I'm concerned right now. It's just about how do you stick with the manager after this kind of result? How do you stick with someone after this? This is part of the job. It doesn't matter if the player's down tools and we lose 4-0 to Palace. Doesn't matter if we try everything we can and we lose 4-0 to Palace. 4-0 to Palace after this result, the results we've been having, 4-0 to Palace after the Champions League campaign, 4-0 to Palace after all the struggles and all the publicity and all the prickliness that we've seen from Ten Hag. 4-0 to Palace that's kind of the final nail in the coffin. Palace just did the double over us, okay? It's getting harder and harder for me, almost impossible to defend Ten Hag when it comes to this kind of stuff. Palace just did the double over us, guys. That's 5 goals to 0 for over 2 matches for us in the league. Obviously, we did beat them in that cup 3-0, but still, we're not in the cup anymore, so it doesn't really matter, does it? And this loss takes us to 13 losses this season, which is the most single-season losses we've had in the Premier League since the Premier League came about in the early 90s. That's 30 years now. Most losses we have this season. So this is already more losses than David Moyes had in his season, and he was sacked. Mathematically, we won't be able to get as many points as David Moyes had. We won't be able to get as many points as Louis van Gaal had. And so the question is, for United fans, why did Moyes get sacked before the end of the season and not Ten Hag? Why does LVG get sacked after doing more in the season than Ten Hag has and potentially winning an FA Cup final, but not Ten Hag? And so these are questions. There's food for thought. It's not me trying to tell you how I feel. It's me trying to get people to start asking these questions. As far as this season goes, there was hope for European football, but today's result probably killed that hope, right? It may be FA Cup or bust as far as our European football hopes are concerned. Obviously, we spoke a little bit the other day about how we can still get European football. We got to get 5th or 6th or 7th place, or we have to win the FA Cup final. Those are basically our only choices, and it doesn't look like we're going to get 5th, 6th, or 7th place right now unless we somehow pull a rabbit out of the hat. The winner of the FA Cup automatically qualifies for the Europa League group stage. But again, the question is, should that save his job? Because we've seen that it didn't save LVG. It didn't save David Moyes. Louis van Gaal was sacked the day after winning the FA Cup, and he got a higher league finish than Ten Hag, and he's got more points than we can win. So it's just the difficult questions to ask ourselves. We can take a drink of coffee here. So yes, the injury crisis Ten Hag's dealt with is pretty much unprecedented, right? It's been insane. How can any manager, any club plan for these kind of freak injuries or the sudden nosedive in form from key players. I mean, you just can't. You can't plan for that. You can't plan for the fact that Mason Mount is going to get injured and just cannot seem to get back fit. You can't plan for Lisandro Martinez breaking his foot last season, coming back, and then clearly, it wasn't healed properly and it got re-injured. And then you can't plan for that when he does get fit, an opponent literally falls on the outside of his leg and he's out again for months. You can't plan for those things. And even if you could, the injuries to the other defenders have pretty much killed any of those plans. You can't plan for that kind of stuff. You just can't. But at the same time, and I've said this recently as well, you have to be able to manage your way out of it. You change your tactics, change your formation. You got to do something. I don't care what you have to do. The problem is that he keeps doing the same things. Ten Hag said after the match, the players didn't follow his instructions. He pointed out, like, the goal we conceded from a Palace throw-in, like, shouldn't happen. The players aren't following the rules. Even youngsters should take responsibility in that situation. And he said that kind of thing before. So change it. Change the situation. It's just like, again, he's trying to play his way without the players to do it. If I want to make a cake, I go down to my kitchen and I'm like, all right, I don't have any milk. I don't have any eggs, no oil, no sugar, no flour. Guess what? I can't make a cake. That's just the way it is. Guess what? Everybody's getting some blueberries or something for dessert because I can't make a cake. I have to go to the store, a la the summer transfer window, or I got to just not make a cake and try something else. And it may not be what I want. It may not be what everybody else wanted, but it's what we have. You may have to just sit deep, park the bus for the next couple of games and try to hit people on the counter. That's just the way it is. There's no shame in that, especially at this point in the season. There's no shame in it all season long when we've had all these injuries. But it's definitely going to probably get more out of these players than trying to force this system onto the players that you didn't really want, and you've already said can't do it. So why are we trying to? That is what I've said many, many times. If you've watched these videos, that is the thing I've said is going to be the biggest nail in Ten Hag's coffin, is trying to continue to play that way when we don't have the players, all right? Whether it's the high press, whether it's the little triangles, whether it's playing out from the back, it's all failing on a weekly basis because we don't have the players for it, and Ten Hag still tries it. That is the biggest problem. I don't like to compare managers to Sir Alex. Okay, I think a lot of people do that, and I don't think it's fair. Everybody's going to feel like a failure if you compare them to Sir Alex Ferguson. It's just the way it is. I remember, maybe it was Einstein who said a fish will always think it's an idiot or a failure if you judge it by how well it can climb a tree. Don't quote me. I don't know if it was Einstein, and it may not be the exact quote, but that's basically what I'm saying. Don't judge people by unfair standards. Right? It's not fair. But as I say that, I'm going to go around and do it. But we've seen instances where Fergie has gotten something out of this. So if you remember, Fergie played 7 defenders against Arsenal at one match, and they still managed a 2-0 win. I said in another video that Oli against PSG in the second leg of that Champions League match, I think it was that quarterfinal, it was that knockout or the round of 16. Oli didn't have 10 of his first team players, including guys like Pogba and whatnot. And we still managed to beat them and knock them out of Champions League that season. This is what I mean. You need to be able to figure it out. Sometimes it doesn't mean you have to pull off a miracle. It doesn't mean it's got to be moments, but sometimes it means you have to change tactics, change your formation, change personnel around, sit deep instead of trying to press high, like invite the pressure. We've seen that, we can concede shots, but we can also limit opponents to not really good opportunities, and we can hit them on the break. Like we saw it against Liverpool. We can do it. Why don't we just do it? It doesn't make sense to me. You've got guys like Eriksen, Onana. Onana's distribution obviously was not great yesterday, but it's much harder to pick out a teammate in the middle of the pitch who's facing you, because you're lofting a ball, you're giving the opposition time rather than just hit something on the break. If you put a ball into space on a counterattack, You know, that's much, much easier than trying to just pick them out with a lofted ball while they're facing you and hoping an opponent doesn't come in and head it away. That is not good. We have too many players just standing around with their back to goal trying to just get the ball 2 feet so they can then lay it off return. We need to just start hitting them on a break. So I've said before, I think Ten Hag's fate has already been decided. The loss against Palace might have been the final nail in that coffin. I'll be honest, I woke up this morning expecting to see my timeline full of retweets of an official statement from United saying that he had been dismissed. We thank him for what he's done. We wish him the best of luck in his future endeavors, all that nonsense. I'm still half expecting to see it sometime this week. But I do imagine first what we're going to see today, tomorrow probably too, is that Ineos and Sir Jim and all them, they've held those crunch talks, right? Those crisis meetings with Ten Hag and with among themselves to discuss things. I think we're going to see that sometime today. Either way, I don't think we'll see Erik Ten Hag at United this summer. I definitely don't think we'll see him next year. And again, that's not me saying I want him gone. I'm saying I just don't think that there's any way back for him after today's result. We saw similar results get managers sacked in the past. Mourinho, Ollie. I mean, it's just it's becoming untenable at this point. Getting something back from the season, but it's different ownership than we've seen in the past. Maybe they are willing to be a little bit more tight-lipped, play their cards a little close to the chest. Maybe they're even willing to be a little more patient. I don't know. There's getting a point though where the patience is becoming a bit of just denial or naivete. Obviously, I don't want Ten Hag to get sacked. I don't want any manager to get sacked. I want them to learn and improve and do what they need to do. But Ten Hag hasn't done that, and I just don't see a way back for him. Again, managers live and die by decisions and results, and Ten Hag hasn't shown that he can learn from the decisions. So I don't weep for him, though. He'll be fine even if he gets sacked. Clubs like Bayern Munich don't look at managers if they're bad managers. Like I said, I don't get upset when managers do get sacked. They receive huge payoffs from their clubs, and they're usually back managing another club within 6 months. So don't cry too much for managers when they get sacked. You know, they get a lot of money to get fired. It's the golden handshake, right? Question is, though, when it comes to Ten Hag, do we sack him now with 3 league matches and an FA Cup final left, or do we wait till after the final, like a la LVG, to do that? Do Sir Jim and company think that Ten Hag can pick up any more points in the league? We've got 3 difficult matches coming up: Arsenal, Newcastle, Brighton. I could very easily see us losing each of those matches. I don't think it's surprising at all for me to think that. Do they think that Ten Hag can win the FA Cup against City? If not, if they don't think he can pick up points, if they don't think he can win the cup, then they think that he'll cause more damage than good, then they need to sack him now and maybe hope for somewhat of a little mini new manager bounce as we finish out the rest of the season. If you think he's going to cause more damage, if you think, okay, I don't see him winning any of these matches, I don't see him winning the cup, then you need to get rid of him then. That's just the way it is. Any manager. Who takes over, though? Let's say that happens. Who takes over? Steve McLaren? I mean, Steve McLaren is a former manager. He has worked under Fergie. He's worked on his own. He's not a bad manager. Darren Fletcher. I mean, we've seen it happen before where, Michael Carrick steps in. Giggs took over when Moyes got sacked. Do you bring back Ollie for the last few matches? I know Ollie loves the club, and I have no doubts that Ollie might do it. But at the same time, I would feel a little embarrassed for Ollie if he did after the way that it ended for him at first time. I think that I would prefer Ollie to have a little bit more self-respect and pride than to come back again. Because leave it to us, he somehow wins a few matches, even wins the cup, and then we'll give him the job again. Who knows? I don't like any of this options. I don't like the idea of going through this again. But again, if you think Ten Hag is going to do more harm than good, then that decision needs to be made right now before it gets worse. Because you could get a new manager bounce. Somebody else could do something different. I mean, clearly Ten Hag isn't. So anyway, those are my 3 thoughts. Obviously, number 1, same shit, different day. Number 2, just play the kids. And number 3, I think Ten Hag is gone. Sorry, allergies. I'm curious to know your thoughts, though. What are your thoughts on the match? What are your thoughts on Ten Hag? What are your thoughts on the players? Do we need to play the kids? Do we sack Ten Hag now? Do we wait till after the Cup? There's a lot to chew on there. But those are my 3 thoughts. Do you think, should I do a roundup? There's not much to go on. There were a few things that I was going to say for the roundup, but there's not much else to do today. Let's do the roundup real quick. There's not much, but there are a few little rumors. Let me go ahead and bring up a different window. So we'll start by sticking with Ten Hag for a moment. So Sky Sports, this is like yesterday. This is from Sky Sports. So Bayern Munich's hierarchy believe Erik Ten Hag's coaching has been hampered by a, quote, litany of off-field issues and a poor operational setup at United. Yeah, I've said that too. That's a big part of it. Ten Hag gets a bit of grace in that regard. I don't think a lot of managers would be able to navigate a lot of what's been going on behind the scenes. Furthermore, it's reported that Bayern think his work at Ajax and his debut season with United has been given more credence than the injury-riddled campaign. So they're weighing it more heavily on what he did before this season. And furthermore, should Ineos decide to part company with Erik Ten Hag at the end of the season, it is understood Bayern would not be the only potential suitors, with Ten Hag's agent Kees Voss and his SCG agency having fielded contact from 2 other clubs. So there are 2 other clubs looking. I don't know who those clubs would be. I'm guessing, if I had to guess, I would probably say like Barcelona and maybe Juventus. We know that Allegri is on his way out. You could maybe argue like Milan or something. I think, again, Ten Hag's not a bad manager. He's just not done himself any favors this season. So clearly Bayern are definitely looking at him. Bayern don't look at bad managers. I think he's already been part of Bayern before in the past. He's worked under Pep when Ten Hag was in charge of Bayern Munich's reserves. So we'll see, though. It's going to be an interesting summer for sure. Moving on. So we got a little bit of transfer news here. So Florian Plettenberg, a.k.a. Plettigol on Twitter, has relayed to us via Sky Sports Germany that so recently United scouts have been watching 17-year-old Schalke midfielder Hassan Ouedraogo, some 17-year-old midfielder, right? So Hassan is looking like he's ready to leave Schalke this summer. He's got a lot of interest from a lot of big clubs. 2 goals, 1 assist, and 8 starts as a 17-year-old is not bad. Obviously, Schalke are in Bundesliga 2. But still, 17 years old. It's pretty good. So reportedly, RB Leipzig and Bayern Munich are kind of ahead in the race. But apparently, United scouts have watched him at a recent match in the Bundesliga 2. Plettigol did follow up that a transfer with a direct loan back to Schalke for another year is an option as well. So again, this is the hard part with young kids. I think that leagues like the Eredivisie and the Bundesliga are great for young players to really get some minutes and play under their belt. So looking at some of these young players, yeah, sign them and basically just loan them back and let them continue developing for a little bit. It's not a bad idea. But it's another young teenager that we've been linked with that we're scouting. So it's clear that we're trying to build for the future. We're trying to get more of these young stars. Now, whether or not that's literally just trying to build for the future or Sir Jim and Ineos trying to identify the next Mbappe or the next Haaland and flip them for massive profit in a few years, I don't know. You won't begrudge them thinking that way either. That's part of it. But at the same time, I like that we're looking at a lot of young players. So this is yet another one. So we'll see. I won't lie and say I've watched him. I've not watched him. I'm just looking at the stats. So 17-year-old, 8 starts, 3 goal involvements is not bad at all. Finally, sticking with a bit of transfer news. So you remember I shared recently that United were looking at an experienced striker this summer to help Rasmus Højlund develop his playing style and also help share the goal scoring responsibility. Well, now Matteo Moretto, who's been pretty vocal in the last few weeks on social media and YouTube and whatnot, he's reporting that United have met with the agent of Real Madrid Joselu to discuss the player's availability. So obviously, Real Madrid lost Karim Benzema. They brought in Joselu on loan, and he's been popping up here and there with some goals. Obviously, he's a loanee, so he's not going to play too much, but he has been helpful. 34-year-old, comes from Espanyol on loan, but he does have 14 goals and 3 assists in all competitions this season. So for a loanee in a Real Madrid side, that's not bad numbers. Obviously, it's not the kind of numbers that are going to make a huge impact in terms of bringing United to a next level, but at the same time, it does help to have just another striker. Now, I know there are a lot of people who are like, great, another 34-year-old. That's exactly what we need. We'll see. These are just links right now. But so Madrid haven't yet made a decision on whether or not they'll exercise the buy option. I think it's like a €1.5 million buy option in the loan. But they do potentially have Kylian Mbappe coming in, Endrick in a few years, still have Vinicius, still have Rodrigo. It doesn't seem likely that Joselu is going to stick around because he's just not going to play. But who knows? I could be wrong. So that is the latest roundup. Like I said, not a whole lot going on. Obviously, it's going to be quiet. I think the biggest news we'll see the next few days, again, is going to be those crunch talks, crisis talks, regarding Ten Hag and regarding results at United. I still am half expecting to see that Ten Hag is going to be sacked this week. But we'll see. It's almost like I'm not even like mad anymore. I'm not sad. It's just like, I don't know. All the emotions are just kind of numb at this point. I think yesterday was the first time I kind of just sat down and watched the match, like actual literal sat down and not stood and kind of got involved, because it's just, what is there to get involved with? What is there to get excited about? It was just the performance from the first few minutes. You could tell it was just going to be another shit show, another drop point situation. Like I said, I predicted 2-2, and looking back, I can't believe how optimistic I was. So anyway, that is my 3 thoughts on the Palace match. United lose 4-0. Those are a bit of the news roundup. I'll be back tomorrow for a bit more roundup in the daily, news roundup as far as Manchester United is concerned. Before you go, please don't forget to hit that like button on the video. It really helps me out, lets me know who's watching and what you guys think. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new, please. I would really appreciate that. Get involved in the comments. I will respond. I respond to everybody. Go check me out on Twitter, MUFC versus everybody. And don't forget to stop by tomorrow for the daily live news roundup in the morning or lunchtime if you're watching in Europe. So thanks again, guys. I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.